Hello and welcome to the newest Social Speak podcast episode. My name's Caitlin McDonald and I'm one of the co-founders over here at Social Speak. And today we are joined by Carr, the owner and founder of Farotech, a Gold Star HubSpot partner. Farotech is a comprehensive, growth-driven digital marketing agency that implements a systematic approach to lead generation, nurturing, and conversion by utilizing scalable web design, cutting-edge inbound strategies, and creative video development. So let's give Chris a warm welcome as he joins us on this podcast episode. Great. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So to kick things off, tell us a little bit about your background in digital marketing.
Oh, great. Well, I started Farotech in 2001. So it's been nearly 18 years. And we started out just as a web development company. And, it was just myself. And then eventually there was one other individual. Now we're between full-time employees and part-time. We have about 50 people working for our agency. We service companies all throughout the United States, healthcare, business to business, business to consumer, you name it. But so we started about 18 years ago. It started out as a web development company. And then the natural progression would be, hey, you know what? You guys created a really great website, but nobody can find it. And so we went from a web development company to really getting into SEO. Mm-hmm. And then the next progression after that was, hey, you create really great websites. I'm on the first page of Google, but for some reason my phone isn't ringing, my email's not blowing up, or basically my forms aren't blowing up. What do I do about that? And so we spent the latter half of the last 18 years really talking about conversion science. Driving the wrong traffic to you, they're not going to convert. Hitting traffic at the wrong part of the buyer's journey, they're not going to convert. So it was really important for us to solve the actual problem that they had, not just give them marketing ease or marketing answers, because that's easy to do. Like sales are down. I'm like, yeah, but I got 1,000 Facebook likes.
Right, exactly. Those vanity metrics aren't gonna cut it anymore.
Yeah.
So
that was 18 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So your business, Farotech, you focus on inbound marketing, web design, and video for really large orthopedic brands. Can you describe how the three of these relate to short-term and long-term strategic marketing decisions?
Sure. Well, let me share my screen for a second.
Great. It's that little green box.
Yep, there we go. So one of the things that we do is we try to really affect the hiring decision. And the reason why I'm saying that is that the average orthopedics practice usually might have one person who's in charge of marketing. And as you see on this slide here, you can see my computer, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Marketing is moving extremely fast. The expectations have never been higher. They expect you as an orthopedics practice to be on the first page of Google. They expect you to be a thought leader. They expect you to have a social presence, you name it. And just basically the list goes on. And usually what happens is orthopedics practices go and they hire a marketing professional, or basically a CMO or something like that. And we call that person, it's a HubSpot term, but they call them Marketing Mary. Marketing Mary wakes up one day and realizes that all of this stuff is more than a one-person job, and so they need support. And so what happens is that Mary usually finds a content writer, and then they maybe tap on the shoulders of a social media vendor or something like that. All the PowerPoints and all that stuff still has to be created, so maybe they might have a project manager who's doing that. Then you have a web designer, and basically you're stressing out your web guy, and everything has to look pretty with graphic design. What happens is you wake up one day and you got a lot of money going out the door.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So where we sort of found a niche is we do what's called a team-based solution. And the team-based solution allows your marketing person to still stay in place, but we become your team behind that marketing person. And so what happens here is with the really large orthopedics practices, they need to scale, but they don't want to hire 5 people to do so. So what they do is they hire an organization like ours that is scalable, and we're able to do all the things that they don't have time to do. A lot of times we bring our expertise and our approach to it, but sometimes it's just we have the time that they don't have.
Right.
How does it affect the short term and the long term? Well, the short term is that we try to implement a strategy, but the long term is that we hope to be your sort of your basically your solution to scaling your marketing team.
Great, great. So providing those, the quick positions that need to be filled, but also long-term growth of the team when the organization is growing as well.
Yeah, and then they like it because if they don't like their writer, I fire them. They don't have to fire them if
Exactly, exactly. It goes on your shoulders.
All of the headaches, because
Yep.
I used to do the joke when I did that PowerPoint slide that I used to have this whole drama that went on that like we have Marketing Mary and then we have Connie Content, but Connie doesn't really get along with Mary and you know what I mean? And like all that drama that lands on your desk, that lands on my desk so you don't have to worry about it, like all that type of stuff.
Awesome.
But the soap opera part of my sales pitch.
I love it. I love it. Gosh. Well, let's jump into trends. What current trends are you seeing for the health industry with inbound marketing in 2019?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of trends. And one of the things that I wanted to sort of talk about is fighting the trends first and then adopting the trends second.
Oh, okay.
What I mean by that is, give me 1 second here. I'm going to get to it. So usually what happens here is let's pretend like it's a website company or a decision to basically take on a marketing campaign. Usually what happens is that if you see on the bottom left-hand corner, I'm saying site because I'm basically saying it's a website because people are very familiar with this. Is basically what happens. You go and you create a really great website, right? And then what happens is that a lot of orthopedics practices get really busy with their patients.
Yeah.
And then they don't really continually evolve their website. And so a couple of years later, someone's like, oh, well, you know what? We really need to create a new website. So that's what they do. Maybe 2 to 5 years later, they create another website and another website. But if you were to really ask them hard questions, like what did you learn from website number 1 that made you decide that you needed website number 2 or website number 3? And usually what happens is that they don't really have a clean answer. They just know that it has to be better than it is now. And obviously graphic design ages with time. Like, like it's pretty funny. Like I can look at a website. I've been doing this for 18 years. I can look at a website. I'm like, oh, cool. 2007.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, But what I recommend is that every time you change that website or that campaign, it's like reinventing the wheel.
Yes.
But if you can basically be in a scenario like you're seeing here, and you basically develop a system and a foundation, if you look at the orange line, we recommend that orthopedics practices develop a strong foundation and then make micro adjustments along the way, learning and learning and learning and learning. And so let me kind of show you how we do some of that. Give me 1 second here.
And just for everybody listening to the podcast, I will create a link that goes directly to this place of the video so you can see that graphic as well. So that will be down in the description.
Great. So usually what happens here, so I go and I built that website. It's the foundation, right? I usually recommend that orthopedics practices put on heat mapping. This was one of my clients, but this is their old website. You'll notice that one of their critical buttons had basically no eyeballs on it, or basically people's mouse movements weren't going there. And they spent a tremendous amount of money and effort on these videos, but there were people going to that. So they had to make adjustments to their website, and they did. Other things that I got graded on is how many appointments could I get for this organization? And you'll notice that 15% of their audience didn't even scroll down far enough. We do the same testing in mobile. You look at all the clicks that they're going to do over a variety of different filters, such as search terms, what part of the country, or how long do they take to click. So that you know if you're going to do drip marketing, is it going to be better to do it at 6 o'clock at night or like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning?
Right.
We look at every KPI that they do, and we basically try to make adjustments on each of the smaller goals too. We look at mouse movements to find out what parts of the website are confusing. We look at your forums to figure out why people aren't converting. We look at pages that are converting and try to create attribution pages. And then later on, we're going to talk about video, but I'll talk a little bit about it now. What we try to do is we try to look at videos, and we have a scale to figure out, are our videos too long or people dropping off at certain points? So when you know all this usability data about your website, if you know that all that usability data about your website, essentially what you're able to do is you're able to create basically a system that if you imagine it's like a spear, you're making this spear sharper and sharper.
Right.
That make sense?
That absolutely makes sense. So creating these heat maps is actually something that any website can have on them. There are different apps out there, different softwares and programs out there that your team has access to and can just install a code on your website so you can start gaining traction and insights into how people are actually acting and reacting to your own website.
That's right.
So Chris, thank you so much for bringing that up. It's so important, rather than having a new person, a new marketing director come in and say, we need a new website. Really think clearly about what those goals are and see how your website's currently performing compared to those goals. Because you might be surprised that, that thing that you think everybody's clicking on, not getting a single click.
Yeah, we've adjusted words on the homepage and seen like a 5 to 10% uptick. And you're just like, honestly, like sometimes we did it by accident.
Yeah.
We're measuring. And so we're like, okay, good. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it might not work the same way the next time, but for that one center, it worked great.
Yep.
Yep. Well, let's see, you brought up video. So let's jump into video. Can you tell us how video affects digital marketing and what you're seeing with video right now?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing you want to probably say is, I'm going to keep using the word orthopedics practice, but if you're in healthcare, let's just say it's interchangeable, but I'm going to keep using that word.
That's great.
So that we're on a level playing field. So essentially what you're kind of doing here is that in terms of video, you need to realize that each practice is unique, even though, a lot of times it comes down to the quality of care, the quality of outcomes, the resources, the technology provided, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if I have a torn ACL, I need my ACL fixed.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So one of the things that's going to be really important is that you are not only your homepage, but also your specialty pages really try to display differentiation. And so we do this in a couple different ways. The first thing we want to be able to do a video is you need to know the way the audience thinks. And what I mean by that is that there's different parts of your buyer's journey, which we might go into a little bit later, but the beginning stages, you're sort of in the awareness stage. And then later on, as the pain lingers on, or you're really in a spot where it's critical, you're in like the decision level stage.
Mm-hmm.
So what we try to do from a video perspective is we try to basically create a video that's going to basically be neutral to each of those stages, but that explains how you're different from other practices very simply, as simple as we can. So, there's this running joke that I tell or beat to death is that, the average goldfish has an 8-second attention span, and the average human has a 7-second attention span.
You give us a lot of credit.
Yeah. So essentially we're losing to goldfish.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that means is that it's really important when they come to your website that you give them the information they need as quickly as possible and in different formats, because some people are readers. Mm-hmm. Some people are video watchers. I personally am a video watcher. I don't know what it is, but one of the other things that video gives you the power to do is, in my opinion, if you were to say, what is marketing? Marketing is a race to emotion. The earlier I can get you involved in that process, you know what I mean? The more likelihood I'm going to get you to convert. So of course they want to get their ACL fixed, right? But that video is going to say, don't you want to dance at your daughter's wedding?
Yes. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter why you're here. What you want to be able to do is life beyond treatment, right? So we try to create videos that are going to do that, but we use the technology in a really cool way. So the first thing we do is we use a technology like this to find out how long are videos, basically how long are our videos. So you'll see this on the top right-hand side, you'll see that this graph is kind of dragging down to the right. All right. You'll see the video over to the left, but the actual video over to the left, but through critical calls to action, which basically are things like this, whether it's at the beginning of the video, the end of the video, or even 15 seconds into the interview, I'm able to collect people's information into our database so we can drip market to them. But what's really cool about this is I'm able to find out who's watching my videos by name. So if you have these two case studies here, you have Oliver, who watched 98% of the video, So if you're going to talk about treatment options at the end of the video, Oliver knows the full story. Now, Tim Bailey, as you can see here in orange, he's rewound a couple times, but he's only watched 59% of the video. So what our system will do is that when Tim Bailey leaves the website, we're going to be able to drip market to him about features and benefits and cost of procrastination and testimonials, things like that.
Yep.
Now, there's going to be this blanket statement I do need to make early, and so you don't get comments and crazy stuff, but obviously HIPAA does apply. So make sure that you're getting counsel on how you communicate. We're well versed in this, but just know that we know that HIPAA matters not only to you, but also to us as your agency.
Yes, it's such an important thing to point out. You need to make sure that you are HIPAA compliant with everything that you're doing when it comes to collecting names and email addresses and remarketing to them. But this is pretty incredible that you can even tailor that follow-up series based on how far they've watched that video. So that they're being
let me kind of explain a little bit more on video. Right. So let's say hypothetically this is your sitemap. In the buyer's journey that I explained before, usually you're going to have awareness content, consideration level content, and decision level content. Mm-hmm. We do something called lead scoring, which basically means we give visitors a certain level of points for every time that they come to our website and they embrace and engage with marketing. So what we're able to do is we're able to find ways where individuals come to our website and say they go to our hand and wrist page. Assuming they've got a cookie on their computer, when they leave the website, an email automatically gets kicked out to them, and that email will have a video in it that's 30, 60, or 90 seconds long. So what we're trying to do is get video in the hands of as many people as possible. And if they haven't gone deep enough into our website to get to critical assets, we create a system that if you're not going to come to us, we're going to get it to you.
Yes. Yep. That's great.
And then one other factor that I would say here is we also try to develop these asset pages. What asset pages are all the most frequently asked questions or common objections about a certain treatment area or something like that, but they're all on one page. But what happens is that when they click on that question, we have a video that plays for them that's maybe 60 or 90 seconds long. So essentially what we're doing is we're giving them quick and simple information in a format that is digestible, but because it's in video format, I can use that asset on my website. I can use it in my social media. I can use it in my drip marketing. I can use it in apps, you name it. So the more video assets that I can create, sort of the better scenario that the better outcome I can have.
And so I'm going to stop you right there. So one thing that we hear time and time again is to repurpose content. So video, Chris is describing that video is such a great asset to have in your database because you can use it over and over again. You can use it on the website to answer questions, social media, email marketing, and apps, really all of the different channels that you could be marketing on. Video fits in there. So thank you, Chris, for bringing that up. It's so important to reiterate that. Don't spend, your energy trying to recreate something new for every single channel. Use the same thing that you've already created.
That's right.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we always say that is because the research and the original writing is the most expensive part of the journey. So why do you keep repeating the most expensive parts when you'd rather be really solid on one critical area and then be in a scenario where I've created really great content that I can scale rather than just constantly, we use a phrase here, we call it making the donuts.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Just like cranking them out.
Exactly.
We were in a spot in 2015, 2016, when the Google hadn't really totally grabbed a hold of quality versus quantity. Yeah. We were at a spot as a company, we were putting out about 1,000 content pieces a month.
Wow.
It's absurd. All right. You know what I mean? What I mean by that is that don't do what I did, but obviously we have almost 150 clients, but my point is that focus on quality, get it really good, and then promote it rather than just churn and burn because, I've learned what to do by knowing what not to do.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Great point there. Okay, so were there any tactics that were expected to perform well or had a lot of hype but failed to take hold in 2018?
Yeah, and nobody's going to like this, but social media.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to check out some of the largest orthopedics brands in the United States, right? Ton of money goes into social media, but the reality is that I don't know whether you're familiar with this or not, but let me see if I can find you one of the slides.
You have all these questions answered in your slides.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's crazy, but I've been doing this a long time.
Yes.
Every time I collect answers, you know what I mean? It's just,
yep.
Yeah. So this is a Forbes article, and this talks about, if you'll notice right here, he calls it the reach apocalypse. Reach apocalypse or whatever it is. But Jason was onto something, and it's something that we've experienced. Essentially what it means is that we go and we really try really, really hard to get Facebook likes or things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that Facebook is a publicly traded company. And so let me read this one line here. It says basically organic reach, which you think I've got 1,000 people that like my page. Everything I post, 1,000 people are going to see it. And you are in for a rude awakening. Like you are lucky if it's like 11% of the people see it.
Yes.
Right. So if you're talking about this, you're looking at, what do you call it? So I'll read this line to you. It says, as organic reach dropped from approximately 12 to 6%, now often 1%, Facebook's stock moved from nearly $50 to $70, adding billions of dollars in marketing capitalization. What does that mean? Facebook wins when they show your audience less of your materials.
Yeah.
Basically your content. But rest assured, good old Facebook, good old social media will get your content to those audience. You just have to pay them to do it. So all these companies, all these practices go, we got to get really big in social media. We got to get really big in social media. Well, for what? I mean, unless you're willing to pay for social media, like you do it, you absolutely do it, but you do not bet the farm on it. I'd much rather double my energy on SEO, pay-per-click advertising, content marketing, establishing yourself as a thought leader, PR, all that stuff, than resting all my hopes and dreams on social media. Because I'm telling you, we work with some really large brands, and that's a very hard nut to crack. It's just not there.
Yeah.
Unless you're willing to pay for it, and then it's not so bad. But a lot of companies don't. They're like, I'm going to pay you to do social media, and then I'm going to pay them too. I'm like, yeah, that's
exactly. That's how it works nowadays. Yep.
I didn't make the rules. You know.
Yeah. Thank you for showing this chart. It's one of those things that, you still have to be on social media, but just don't think it's going to change your practice. Don't think it's going to change the world unless you're paying for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like this is the approach that we use here. All right. We believe for all our practices that you got to know who your buyers are inside and out, your ideal buyer patient personas. Then you want to be able to do something we call usability conversion analysis. It was all that heat mapping stuff to know how are your clients resonating. SEO, content strategy, lead nurturing, which most practices do not have, and I can talk about that. Social media, but only if you're willing to pay to play. Then, I mean, you still do it, but you just don't do it nearly as hard.
Right.
Really firm graphs on your analytics and your data. Some value-added services, I usually call this video. And then pay-per-click advertising if budget provides it.
Yes.
What you'll notice here is I've mentioned almost everything in the marketing circle. If you believe in silver bullet marketing that says, you know what, I'm just one SEO campaign away from glory, you're wrong. You need the whole thing. Like if you were to make a cake and you just, I don't know, I'm not a baker. I'm trying to think of a good analogy here, but, if you really just focused on one ingredient, but everything else was horrible, it's going to taste terrible.
Yeah.
But we do it all the time in marketing because it's sort of a path of least resistance type of stuff.
Yeah. And you hear of, that one case where just focusing on, I don't know, let's say email marketing transformed the practice. That's one case. It's not everybody. So maybe you're going to find that one email sequence or the one way that you can use email to really transform your practice. And I do believe email can, transform your practice, but at the same point, you're going to have to do all this other stuff to see what combination works for you and your own business.
I couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah. So, okay. So what are the top 3 things that medical centers, orthopedic centers should be doing online to see a return from their digital marketing? I think you kind of just nailed it on the head with this description right here, but are there 3, kind of bullet point things that marketing team should be focusing on?
Yes. Let me show one and then I'll talk about 2 because
great.
So obviously with orthopedics, you're going to have a wide net, right? You're going to, let's say that you have multiple specialties at your organization. So that's hips and joints and spines and all the stuff like that, right? You want to have as many of those, you want to cast a wide net to get as many patients as possible, as many patients as possible to your practice. But other things that you want to be able to do is you want to be able to find niches within or communities within your group and get really solid with those communities. So there's one of the largest orthopedics practices is located in Philadelphia. They're one of our clients. One of the things that they do is that they find these subgroups or these niches and they communicate right to the heart of that niche. And they'll do that with a number of different things. Sorry, that's my argument of why do they like supplements? They fall down and hurt themselves all the time. But what they do is they create marketing materials directly to that niche. All right. Not only do that, they also market to the influencers because behind every man with a sore back, there's a wife who's tired of hearing about it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So what happens here is that what we try to do and we recommend you do, which you probably won't because it takes time, is that you literally sit down and you have like a really deep dive into who are your buyer personas. So on the left-hand side, we want to ask really great questions about who are our ideal patient personas. And then I want to be able to find out how do the answers to these critical questions change from one patient persona to the next patient persona, to the next patient persona. Because what you don't want to do is have a one-size-fits-all marketing plan. So if I have a torn ACL, I don't want to hear about your spine center. I don't. Right. But if you have a torn ACL and I start hearing about knee pain and getting drip marketing about knee pain, my conversion rates are going to go way up. So I call this guy the godfather of patient personas or buyer personas. You ever heard of Jack Canfield?
Of course.
Yeah. So he writes Chicken Soup for the Soul. And rather than saying, hey, I'm going to create a different book, he's like, I'm going to create the same kind of book, but I'm going to break it down into all these personas. And now he's a New York Times bestseller to Christians and soldiers and science teachers and you name it, right?
Yep.
That same thing works. We want to basically find niches and communities and we want to market to them about the things that matter to them most rather than just blanket statement marketing that we hope that resonates with all.
Now, do you feel as though it's best to take your time, just, go through all of these different patient personas and then choose the one that you feel is that lowest hanging fruit, create all the resources for that, and then slowly create all the other resources if you don't have, the time or the budget to have a team like yours jump in and create everything at once?
Well, obviously you want to make sure that your foundation is good. So I talked about the wide net. Don't go into niches unless you have your wide net.
Yes.
So let's pretend like you do have the wide net. What I would probably try to do is try to find organizations that would fit multiple buyer personas. And what I mean by that is, let's say hypothetically, I'm just going to use a random scenario here. Say I want to market specifically to roofers. Roofers have bad knees. They're climbing a ladder. It's a tough job. A lot of individuals who have torn their ACL or hurt their knee really bad, they get treatment from an orthopedics practice. So you're communicating to roofers and you've got them for knees. But what's great about well, not great, but let me rephrase this. The tendency that also happens is that once they get their knee fixed, their hip's next. Because you're not walking on level ground.
Right.
Same thing with baby boomers. Same thing with student athletes, or athletes.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So if I market to a niche of baseball players because I've got a really great shoulder department, that's a really great idea.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Like
Great. Great. Okay. So what are the next two things that you recommend?
Obviously, we talked about video.
Yes.
All right. What I would recommend you do is have a really strong homepage video. But the other videos that you do, while it might feel like you've really lowered the bar, I would rather have a lot of content, even shot with an iPhone, right, that is very authentic than you saving up all year long to create a $10,000 video over and over and over again. So you can buy a $20 microphone right from Amazon. You connect it with an iPod, your iPhone. What I even recommend, again, is there's $150, there's these gimbals, so you don't have like shaky hand syndrome.
Yes.
But what I do is that, I would just have these candid interviews with doctors in your practice or physicians in your practice and start to talk about just issues that are relevant at the time or tendencies that they see. That, you know what, like, let's say hypothetically, I forget, Lindsay Vaughn?
Lindsay Vaughn, yep.
Lindsay Vaughn. Say she takes a nosedive at the Olympics, right? Get a doctor and says, you know what, looks like your knee's really banged up. And it's like, well, let me tell you, this is some of the tendencies that we see with skiers because your feet are clamped in, it torques your knees, and then it's the first thing to give because it's a pliable, it's pliable. You know what I mean? Things like that go a long way. So we talked about buyer personas, known your ideal patient persona. We talked about video. And then the other thing I would probably say that you would need to do is that you want to be good at two forms of SEO. One is local SEO, which basically is related to your pin packs and your maps. And then the other one is more organic SEO. And let me give you I'll give you my my canned pitch on SEO real quick.
All right.
So usually what happens here is that if I'm a knee specialist, I need to be found locally with these local pin packs. And then I also want to be found organically. Now, what happens is that there's a different science for local SEO than there is for traditional SEO. So if you're going to work with a vendor, make sure that they know the difference. Okay. So when I'm talking about SEO, obviously you want to be in a scenario where you're getting the best keywords. These are the keywords that everybody wants. Everybody's going to type in to find your services, right? Well, the problem is you're probably not the only orthopedics practice in town. And there's also national providers or at least regional providers that have much deeper pockets than you. So they're going to try to gobble up those skyscrapers. These are the really big keywords, right?
Yes.
So what we recommend is to try to get found on the first page of Google for a number of other keywords that have really high visibility, but with less competition. And what we're able to do is that you're able to reach a tipping point. So if I've gotten clients on the first page of Google for hundreds of keywords, I'm increasing what's called my domain authority. And that once your domain authority reaches a certain level, you've essentially sort of earned the right to be heard in the eyes of Google. What that means is you can actually go after some of those skyscrapers later on because you've sort of earned that clout. Other things you need to know is there's algorithm changes. And if you cheat to try to get to the top, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to see something like this and all of your results are going to be gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, when you are focusing on SEO, is this in addition to the site structure, are you creating content that's tailored directly towards those long tail, keywords that aren't those big skyscrapers, but kind of those lower tier ones?
That's right. So the longer tail keywords are sort of the smaller buildings. And then, like spine specialist is one of the skyscrapers.
Yes. Yep.
So what happens here is that when you start to go after a lot of keywords here, I blocked out the name of this client, but when they found us, they had basically they were promised around a 25% increase in the number of keywords on the first page of Google. That's what standard SEO does. With our system, we were able to increase that by 408%. These are the keywords that are number one on page one. I'm sorry, they're on page one, and we were able to increase that by 247%, the keywords that were number one on page one. All right.
Awesome.
Now, I'm not doing this to say, wow, you guys are really great. But what I'm trying to say is it translates to traffic.
Yes.
The more keywords you do, the better keywords you do, it works. So this organization, just their blog alone, we were able to get them to have an increase in entrances by 856%.
Awesome.
So 63,000 people were reading their blog. Now over 607,000 do. Now you might say, well, how do I know that's even quality traffic? Well, I increased their page views by 639%.
Mm-hmm.
So people are staying online 700% or 600% longer.
Yeah.
So what we believe is the more educated consumer usually converts.
Yes. Now with this, I can hear a lot of marketing directors seeing these numbers and saying, oh my gosh, there's no way that I can do that. Can you give us a perspective of how many new pieces of content you created for this organization over the course of, I think it's a year that you have displayed there?
Yeah. Now this was over 3 years, but
over 3 years. Okay.
The first year was the mill. Remember how I was talking about I was cranking out a ton of
Yes.
content? We do 3 blogs this is just their blog section. We do SEO in the other sections too, but we do about 3 blogs a week minimum. Those are all SEO optimized blogs, stuff like that. So let me kind of show you one thing that's kind of cool about what you can do with blogging is when you work with a vendor like you guys or us or whatever it is, we write everything in collaborative documents. Sorry, one second. But everything should be connected to an editorial calendar.
Yeah.
So you know what's going out in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, whatever it is. So you are proactive rather than reactive.
Yes.
It's one of the major problems I see with practices that they start out, they get all fired up to get into marketing, and then fires happen, and then you look at their blog and it's like the last blog was like in 2017.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It happens. Yep. It just gets away from you. But if you live and die by an editorial calendar, you're going to create content. But what's great about the content that we produce is that a lot of companies will have technology that will allow you to optimize for a certain keyword.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're probably not going to have in-house, but vendors, basically marketing companies will, is technology like this that'll say, you know what, before this content's even published live to the web, I can see the rating here is poor. I can see that the readability is below the target. And just even the number of words on the page is less than the 840 word target.
Yeah.
And I'm only using 2 out of the 20 keywords that need to be used.
Mm-hmm.
So if I loaded this, I published this piece of content, I should have no hope that it's going to beat the competition.
Right.
No.
Yes.
So this software is going to basically look at the top 10 results, and it's going to say, you know what? It's going to look at the top 10 results, and essentially what it's going to do is it's going to say, you know what? Like, you're going to have to make critical adjustments if you're going to score.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather know that early than publish and pray.
Yes. And that is one of the reasons why that editorial calendar is so important, is that, you can write that blog a month, 2 months, however long before it needs to be published, so that you have the time and you're not feeling that time crunch before you click publish to actually look at, these stats and everything to say, ooh, you know what, if I just click publish, it's not going to do anything for my business.
Correct.
Yeah. Great. So what is the top strategy that should be followed, but often marketing teams get wrong?
They try to do it all in-house.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Mary marketing doesn't have the time to get it all done. And
yes.
Even if she's working 180 hours a week, or is that possible? 180 hours.
I don't even know
whatever that really large number is. She doesn't go home. She just works, right? Yep. She's not going to be able to be a specialist in SEO. It changes every day. She's not going to be a specialist in social media. It changes every hour. You know what I mean? And so what happens is that you need to make sure your marketing person is the quarterback who's running a team of specialists, and those specialists only focus on their area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
And so, you can get a team through a team, basically a team-based system for the price of hiring one other employee. Mm-hmm. So if you imagine that Mary marketing is one employee and then the whole team is just another employee, the price you're paying an individual team is about comparable to hiring a second employee.
Yeah.
It's scalable. and it's
Yes.
profitable and it's fireable.
Yeah.
And
Yes, absolutely. Shift the blame to someone else. Don't try
that's
and take it
right. That's right.
on yourself.
Yep.
Oh, goodness. Let's see. And I just have just a couple more questions for you, Chris. You have shared such valuable information for our listeners and
Thank
viewers.
you.
You founded Farotech, and it's now a top-ranked inbound marketing agency. Do you want to just dive into your company and services a little bit? Give a little pitch. I know you've been
Yep.
using your sales pitch for information.
Yeah, just
but
watch this video.
yeah.
Yeah. I think the sales pitch that we would say is that we are truly partners. And what I mean by that is that I'll try to tell it with a story or whatever it is, but you'll
Great.
get my
And do you
point.
want to just close your screen and then we can wrap it
Sure.
up with, yeah.
Sure. So what I mean by being truly partners is if you're looking at the company you're hiring to do your marketing as a vendor, right? You're always going to treat them like a vendor and the results are going to act like a vendor. Now, a partner is responsible for the things that you are responsible for. So if I'm a CMO and my job, my dependency is about getting appointments, making sure that critical physicians are seen, like if you're opening up a new practice, making sure that I have enough, walk through traffic, digital traffic, whatever it is. I want to make sure that as a partner that they're on the line or on the hook for the same things I'm on the hook for.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we do in Farotech. We sort of put ourselves on the line. We find out what matters to you most. We bring strategy, we bring people, but we bring accountability.
Yeah.
And that's the critical part for us is that our butts are on the line too. And so if you're going to walk out on the ledge, we're going to walk out there with you.
Yes.
And so how do we plug ourselves? We do really great work. You obviously see we get really great results. We work with really large brands, but we also work with some medium-sized brands as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what's exciting for us is just the transparency we have with our clients. Like it's funny. I got married and I had clients that weren't even invited to the actual wedding, like come to the actual ceremony because they just know me that well. I've got clients that call us and say, hey, what do we say about this particular treatment area and stuff like that? I'm like, shouldn't you know that? That's your company. But we're so ingrained that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
They say they're going to expand. They come to us first not because we're giving them permission, but they come to us first so they know what data they need to know before they make decisions. And so that's what I believe a good partnership looks like. That's what I believe a good vendor looks like. And I think that's what a good marketing company looks like.
Absolutely.
And one other thing is that I hire and love the 99.9% of all my employees.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning I hire really great people that are passionate about their clients. And that's important because you're going to spend most of your waking hours behind a desk.
Right.
And so if you don't love what you do, don't work here at Farotech and don't work for my clients.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great. Yep. I love that. And then lastly, to wrap this up, are there any marketing strategies that your team is currently testing that you think other agencies might not be implementing for their clients?
Yeah. One of the things that we're trying to do right now is be in a scenario where we're doing a little bit more outbound emailing, which might not sound right. So here's what happens. A lot of times practices and organizations, do you work with dentists as well or just orthopedics practices?
Mostly just orthopedics practices.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's still the same. Let's say hypothetically on your patient intake form, they work for a really large provider, say it's a pharmaceutical company, right? Oftentimes we don't go back and look at our database as the source or the well of where people are. And so what happens is I can go back and I make sure that I ask who is your employer, and I also ask what your business title is. The reason why I'm doing that is because if I know your employer and I'm able to get email addresses to your employers and do lunch and learns at your employers, that's a really good thing. So I want to be able to go to each of the large providers in my area and be that guy, that practice for that organization. Yeah. Or I want to be in a scenario where, let's say hypothetically it's a C-level executive. I can't guarantee that the people at the bottom of the totem pole are in the same place as the C-level executive is. So I want to know how quality is my list. And if they're middle of the road or the title feels middle of the road, I feel pretty safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that.
Yep. Other things that it does is it says, you know what, if this guy went to my practice and his insurance, we basically, he's covered by his insurance at my practice. Basically, his insurance is valid. I know that everybody else in that company is too.
Exactly. They make perfect potential patients for you.
That's right. That's right.
Great.
And so I've been doing orthopedics for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
My wife has to drag me to go to the doctor's office. Drag me. Like literally, I know better. I know.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure that for every patient you have, there's 10 patients that are have nagging pain that are just like me, that just refuse to get there. So if I'm going to get drip market and create really critical arguments for an idiot like me, I'm going to speak.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the valuable insights and information that you've been able to share. Are there any questions that you feel I should have asked that I didn't?
No, I mean, I think usually what happens is that the first question I get is, how long does it take?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it really depends on how much do you want it. And what I mean by that is, if you're willing to put in the hard work and get your foundation straight and get your blogging straight and consistently stay proactive, not reactive, you can see how your results work by the 90-day mark, and you can know how it should progress.
Yes.
You're spitting in the dark. You know, I don't know this analogy. Basically, if you are not in a scenario where if you're a reactive marketer, you will never know when this is going to pay off.
No, you never will.
Yeah. Yep. So get that editorial calendar, get focused, work hard, and know what the next 90 days, six months, 1 year is going to look like.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Chris. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience for me too.
Great. So thank you again to Chris with Farotech for joining us today. It was such a pleasure hearing about his expertise and about some of those tactics that you should be implementing for your own health center. Again, my name's Caitlin McDonald, and please tune in for our next episode of the Social Speak podcast.